The desert liked to keep its secrets, and the ghost town of Esperance, 40 miles north of Bisbee, had more than most. When the copper ran out in the 1920s, the miners left everything behind: company houses, a saloon whose mirror was cracked straight through the word cheers, and a scatter of cook stoves built to withstand apocalypse. Except the apocalypse never arrived. Instead, a century later, a venture capital group with a flair for experiential luxury rebranded the hollow town as Prospector's Rest Glamping Retreat. Canvas tents where bunkhouses once stood, solar-lit boardwalks, fire pits ringed with Adirondack chairs, and its most Instagrammed feature, an open-air kitchen stocked exclusively with vintage copper cookware. I managed the place. My name is Nina Reyes, one-time investigative journalist turned reluctant hospitality professional after the newspaper I worked for folded. The desert felt like a decent exile. It was hot but honest, with more stars than regrets, and most nights I convinced myself the ghosts were only a marketing hook. The weekend the trouble started was our last full booking before monsoon season. We had 12 guests, Leela and Theo Armitage, travel influencers who live-streamed everything right down to brushing their teeth, Dr. Malcolm Hargrove, a retired geologist, writing a memoir no one had asked for, Veronica Sloan and her teenage daughter Ivy, en route to a soccer camp in Phoenix, a pair of newlyweds named Cora and Bryce, who'd arrived in matching denim, Mel Douglas, an ultra-marathon runner training for a 100-mile race in the Chiricahuas, and of course Tuck Goodman, my desert rat handyman, who claimed he'd been born in a Joshua tree. He supervised the nightly communal cookout, where guests used our copper pots to prepare chili, or pozole, or whatever else Yelp said would earn 5 stars. Friday evening was textbook perfect. Sunset turned the brick chimneys blood orange, and a morning dove sang back up to the coyotes. The chili simmered, the Armitages filmed, Dr. Hargrove lectured the newlyweds on sulfide mineralization, and Ivy Sloan tried to coax signal bars out of the thin, dark air. When fatigue finally settled over the camp like an extra blanket, Tuck doused the lanterns. The copper hung from butcher hooks, catching moonlight. I went to bed remembering why I'd taken the job. Some places felt carved out of time. Esperanza was one. I woke at dawn to the scream of metal clanging on adobe. Outside, the sky was lavender, the wind sharp. Theo Armitage stood in his pajamas, holding a frying pan that sparkled like a disco ball. "Is this a joke?" he shouted. Every piece of copper, skillets, stockpots, tea kettles, even the tiny sauce warmers, had changed overnight to a gleaming brassy gold, shot through with cubic crystals. Not real gold. Pyrite. Fool's gold. The shapes were identical down to the dinted lid handles. You could see the ghost of the original copper under a translucent skin of glittering, faceted nonsense. Tuck touched a skillet, then whistled. "I'll be," he muttered. "Silas strikes again." Leela's camera was already rolling. "Friends," she told her 3.7 million followers, "the desert has a sense of humor. Or a curse," Dr. Hargrove said. He carried a geologist's hand lens in his shirt pocket and now used it to study the pan. Iron sulfide crystals. Someone went to an extraordinary lengths for performance art. Or sabotage, Bryce said, scanning the horizon as if a team of pranksters might still be hiding behind mesquite. "Who's Silas?" Ivy asked. Tuck scraped a boot heel on the packed dirt, uncomfortable at becoming a storyteller. "Silas McGraw," he said, "last of the Esperanza miners. Legend is he felt the company stole his claim. Swore he'd turn every ounce of honest copper into worthless glitter if any outsider tried to profit from this place. Folks say he died down shaft, holding a lantern full of pyrite." "Urban myth," I said, trying to sound breezy. "Or rural myth. Either way, nothing called to Bisbee PD won't solve." Except the Bisbee PD didn't answer on first or second try. Cell reception could be fickle, but our satellite landline usually worked. That morning it only spat static. The satellite dish itself was fine. I hiked the short rise where it perched and checked the diagnostics panel. All green. The cables were intact, yet no calls placed. Back at camp, breakfast was stale granola and grumbling. Coffee tasted vaguely like pennies. Though there wasn't a scrap of copper left to leach flavor, we brewed in a stainless French press I found in my own quarters. By 10, the heat was keeping pace with the tension. Guests demanded refunds, explanations, at minimum an internet uplink to broadcast their outrage. I gave them shade umbrellas and told them I'd figure it out. "Desert's playing tricks," Tuck said. He'd propped himself on an overturned washtub, flipping the fool's gold skillet in his hands like a coin. "Saw weird stuff when I prospected in Nevada. Gas pockets that crystallize overnight, turn a whole edge green. Mother Earth's got pranks too." "This isn't geology," Dr. Hargrove objected. "It's sculpture. Every handle, every rivet is a perfect replica. You could maybe electroplate pyrite over copper, but not with that crystalline habit. And the mass has changed, heavier but brittle. Something replaced the original metal." "Alchemy, then," Theo said, filming the debate. Cora, the newlywed, tested her wedding ring against a skillet edge. Like she'd seen jewelers do in old westerns, iron sulfide leaves a black streak, gold streaks yellow. The ring's metal showed neither. "I just wanted honeymoon s'mores," she sighed. Late afternoon, clouds the color of bruises mounted the east horizon, the first monsoon buildup of the season. Nothing creates paranoia in the desert like thunderheads. They stand so high they look carved into the stratosphere, and when lightning finally unzips them, rain hits like buckshot. I thought, if we could get through the night, haul everyone back to Tucson tomorrow, the crisis would shrink to a blog post. But the desert wasn't done. At dusk, Mel the ultramarathoner jogged into camp, wild end. "The compass on my watch went haywire," she said, gulping water. "Then my spare battery— Look!" She opened her fist to reveal a lump of pyrite shaped exactly like the cylindrical battery she'd carried. "Silas owes me a Garmin." That killed any last resolve among the guests. The Armitages demanded transportation now, storm or no. Dr. Hargrove proposed we barricade the saloon and study the phenomenon in controlled conditions, which earned him a chorus of disbelief. Ivy huddled beside her mother, whispering that she'd seen sparks flicker over the boardwalk, tiny starbursts dancing between planks. Irrational panic, I told myself, spreads faster than wildfire. Keep busy. Find facts. So I got busy. Sunset turned the sky surgical table white, the kind of glare that parches thought. I marched to the storage barn armed with bolt cutters to retrieve the backup generator and maybe a working radio. The barn sat at the edge of town, near the mouth of McGraw's shaft number 3, sealed decades ago by a concrete plug. Inside, the air smelled of mice and old rope. A single bulb swung overhead, flickering. The copper spare parts box at the back, the one holding extra kettles and ladles, contained nothing but shimmering pyrite duplicates. My breath snagged. The barn had been locked since Tuesday. Only Tuck and I had keys. I reached for the generator pull cord, but it too felt wrong. Stiff, brittle. I yanked gently. The cord snapped, scattering golden shards that glittered like New Year's confetti. I fumbled my phone light toward the far wall. A handprint glowed there, dull red, as if someone had pressed a copper palm against wood long enough to leave tarnish. The print pulsed, growing darker while I watched, then dripped. Coppery liquid spattered the dirt floor, cooled into crystals of pyrite. I stumbled outside, heart drumming. Silas was a story, curses were for tourism brochures. Yet something was rewriting metal at its core. Tuck found me sitting on a rock, staring at my own hands as if expecting them to crystallize. He carried 2 canteens and a .22 rifle. I told him what I'd seen. "Might be the mine," he said after a silence. "Storm clouds crackled overhead. Old vents run under the barn. Weird gases could do things to ore. This isn't ore, I snapped. It's cookware, batteries, pull cords. He squinted at the sky. Then we go down shaft, find the source. Seal it, you mean? Or make peace with it. He sounded deadly earnest, like settlers seeking parley with spirits. We armed ourselves with headlamps, rope, and a crowbar, and pried the lid off Shaft 3's concrete plug. A circular hatch Prospector's Rest had installed as a prop, never meant to open. It yawned like a throat into the earth, exhaling cold air that smelled of wet pennies and sulphur. Lightning rippled across distant ridges as we descended the ladder bolted to the shaft collar. The tunnel at bottom stretched north, shored by timber cribbing blackened with creosote. My headlamp scattered bats. Pyrite crystals sprouted along the walls like frost on windows, glinting as we passed. At intervals the rock showed streaks of turquoise, where copper oxides bled through, fighting the encroaching fool's gold. Copper becoming pyrite, I muttered, not geologically possible. Maybe someone's reversing it, Tuck said. Turning junk litter into useful copper for themselves. He shone his lamp ahead, and I saw the glint of untouched copper vein embedded in the wall, vivid as a wound. We followed, boot scuffs printed in dust fresh. After 50 yards, the tunnel widened into a makeshift workshop. There, under strings of battery lanterns, stood our missing cookware, real copper piled in milk crates. Beside them sat mold plaster casts of every item, and crucibles on a propane burner held molten metal that cooled into pyrite castings. Squatting over a mold was a thin, sun-creased man in coveralls. His hair looked like cobwebbed iron filings. He hummed a miner's lullaby, dipping a ladle into the crucible. "Silas McGraw?" I whispered, half mocking myself. The man turned. His eyes caught my beam, gold flecks swirling in dark irises. He wasn't a ghost, he was breathing, sweating, but time had rubbed him strange, like river stones. He set down the ladle. "I ain't Silas," he said. "Name's Gage McGraw, great-grandson, though folks back home call me fool." He chuckled, revealing a single copper tooth. Tuck lowered the rifle, nonplussed. "You're the curse." "Curses a story," Gage said. "Like you said yourself." He jerked his chin at me. "I'm just settling a debt." "By stealing our cookware?" I asked. "Borrowing? Copper's scarce money these days. I'm returning what the company stole from my people, ounce by ounce. Figure if the tourists get pyrite replicas, they still got their shiny. No one hurt. Except me, my guests, our reputation, and, basic physics," I snapped. "How are you doing this? Casting pyrite that fast?" "Desert provides. Shaft's got a sulfide pocket that seeps hot goss. Mix in a touch of alchemy." He tapped a lab notebook scrawled with equations that looked half chemistry, half folk magic. "And any copper dipped comes out fool's gold after it cools. Cookware becomes collateral." I walked to a crate and lifted a stockpot. My fingerprint smudged oxide on its rim. Genuine copper, unblemished. "Why not sell raw ore?" "Sentiment," Gage said. "Silas taught my daddy the value of poetic justice. Turn the tools of living into lies, like the company turned promises into scrip." Thunder growled overhead, vibrating the shaft. Water began dripping from ceiling cracks. "Storm will flood these tunnels," Tuck warned. "Then you best let me finish," Gage said, fitting a mold around a soup ladle. I reached for the radio at my belt, pointless. No reception. I had a choice. Drag this oddball thief to the surface and call the law, or parley. He'd violated laws, sure, but his grievance was ancestral, tangled, older than borderlines. "Could we negotiate?" I asked. "Take some copper, leave the rests. Stop spooking my guests," Gage considered. "Your guests trespass on McGraw land. Actually, a Delaware LLC owns this patch." Dr. Hargrove's voice echoed behind us. He'd followed along with half the guests, flashlights bobbing. They must have seen our rope, decided curiosity trumped fear. The saloon vigil had turned into a spelunking parade. "Do not interfere," I warned, but the floodgates were open. Dr. Hargrove advanced, spectacles fogging. "Young man," he began, Gage was at least 50. "This pyrite substitution is unprecedented. The crystalline lattice alone could—" Gage swung a crucible ladle close enough to crack Hargrove's lens. "Back up, scholar." "Everybody calm down," Veronica Sloane ordered in her soccer mom voice. Even Gage paused. She stepped between him and our gawking crowd. "We're soaked, half scared, hungry, and your mine is about to become a swimming pool. Whatever gripe you've got, solve it topside." Rainwater dripped faster, rivulets tracing pyrite crystals like veins of mercury. A chunk of timber groaned overhead. Gage packed a rucksack with a few copper pots. "Fine, up we go. But the copper's coming with me." We climbed the ladder, single file, water slapping boots. At the surface the monsoon had broken open. Sheets of rain hammered the ghost town, drenching tents, flooding boardwalk grooves. Lightning flickered like a faulty strobe. The guests huddled under the saloon awning, while Tuck wrestled the hatch cover back in place. Gage stood in rain, face tilted skyward. Pyrite crystals ran like mascara down his sleeves, rain dissolving the fool's gold that clung to him. "Shaft'll seal itself soon," he said. "Mudslide'll finish the job." "Then your ore's gone," I reminded. "Debt paid," he shrugged. "Flood will cleanse." Theo filmed from beneath a poncho. "Epic content," he whispered. Mel pointed at the kitchen hooks. In the storm's green-grey gloom, the pyrite cookware left hanging began to fizz, edges sloughing off like wet sand. Rainwater carried glittering slurry down gutters. In minutes, the replicas dissolved entirely, leaving empty hooks. "The desert's returning its lies," Ivy whispered, "or replacing fear." Gage smirked at me. "Told you, poetic." When the storm finally spent itself, dawn cracked clear. The ground steamed, creosote perfumed the air. The copper cookware original, not replica, stood stacked by the fire pit, polished by sand and rain, returned. Of Gage McGraw, no sign, but bootprints leading south toward Bisbee. Tuck whistled at the cookware's pristine gleam. "Guess he settled on restitution or respect," I said. I picked up a skillet, inspected the handle, stamped discreetly with 2 letters, GM, like a craftsman's mark. A token of ownership, perhaps, or a reminder of bargains struck outside law. Theo Armitage captured the sunrise with one arm around Leela. My caption, "Cursed cookware returns at dawn." Worth the trip? Dr. Hargrove patted the skillet like a prized fossil. "I would kill for a sample of that pyrite slurry." "Lucky for everyone it dissolved," Veronica muttered. We fed the guests breakfast on the house eggs, mesquite-smoked bacon, coffee with real cream. The copper warmed over flame as if nothing had happened. Yet the town felt different, lighter, as if some tense muscle had unclenched. By noon, the satellite line chirped back to life. I filed an incident report vague enough to dodge questions. The Armitages posted a 20-minute vlog that ballooned our reservation requests threefold. People loved curses when someone else had already survived them. That evening, alone by the fire pit, I turned the GM-marked skillet in my lap. Fool's gold sparkled deep inside the tin lining, tiny flecks resistant to scrubbing, like stars caught in metal. The desert likes its secrets, yes, but sometimes it trades them for stories. We keep the shafts sealed now, yet guests still claim they hear a lullaby drifting from the hills after midnight, a tune hammered out on ghostly pans. I don't try to record it. Some songs are better as rumor, half copper, half glitter, truthful enough to taste.